your other big passion, reproductive rights.
Oh, I'm like, what is my other big passion?
Well, I mean,
yes.
Well, I actually did a little research on that. So by many metrics, Massachusetts has the best sort of laws and programs and policies for reproductive rights, and Mississippi has the worst. And people in Massachusetts live about 8 years longer than people in Mississippi, and there's probably a correlation. But I know you spend a lot of time and you spend a lot of your sort of personal equity promoting these reproductive rights. What are the most important things we should be focused on? And what exactly does that mean to you, by the way?
Well, the freedom to choose is at its core, of course. You know, if we are going to protect constitutional rights, then I dare say the freedom of choosing your religion is also the freedom to make choices based on your personal beliefs, your religious beliefs, what you want to do in your healthcare choices. But right now in this country, I think if every American, just as they're looking at how the impact of gun violence in this country is affecting longevity, we should look at what it has meant, even just in these recent few years, and the question of overturning Roe versus Wade, what that choice has meant in women's mortality rates in this country. And these are not women who are trying to
connect those dots for us.
So,
because I don't.
So women, and there are many cases in Texas court right now where the bans are so strict. Many women and many lawsuits throughout this country are dealing with the fact that they have gone to an emergency room with what they thought was a healthy pregnancy, and they've had an issue in their pregnancy for various reasons any of us can imagine. Their water breaks early, they're, having cramping, they go to the emergency room. Now, that woman, that individual who has 2 little babies at home, this is her 3rd pregnancy, she's so excited. It's a girl, she wants this baby. For example, a gentleman shared his story that was one of the most heartbreaking stories I heard, as he sat in the ER and the doctors, based on the abortion ban laws and the strictness of what they were allowed to do and not do, sat while that woman bled out and died. So that child was lost and that woman's life was lost, and that man was powerless because laws threatened the doctors and threatened anyone's medical ability to take care of this woman in the moment. And so there are tragic stories around this country, and the stories that we're hearing are the same conversations we've had. What about in the case of sexual assault, in the case of incest, if a child should have the right to not carry that baby forward, a 12-year-old. And we've heard those stories, and Governor Beshear shared this story in Kentucky. A very brave young woman shared her story preceding the last presidential election about her own tragic assault and inability to have access to an abortion. And then the legalities of crossing state lines now, or helping a friend or a family member to have access. But we're not talking about mortality rates in women who want to have that child. And that, for anyone who has their own personal opinion about abortion, while demanding what another individual should feel or think spiritually, religiously, personally, emotionally about the best care for that child, which I dare say is unconstitutional based on the freedoms we are supposed to uphold in this country. But if you want to deem your opinion, You also then have to consider that you, your daughter, your sister may, in the pursuit of a beautiful and healthy child being born, lose that child's life and your own life because of these strict laws. And not enough people are talking about it. And it's been a disaster in healthcare. And for communities that are underserved, so many OBGYNs are leaving those areas because it feels, or those states. And so now you don't have anybody when you're dealing with breast cancer, cervical cancer, STIs, wanting your child to be taught about healthy birth control. I mean, that's never made sense to me.
You know, I generally try to limit the topics here on things that make an impact on how long or how well you're going to live. And you rarely think, well, reproductive rights, is that a longevity strategy? It
100%.
is. And it has a massive impact on, in an immediate way, to the mother, the pregnant mother, but also the child. And by the way, also how the child grows up. There's a very interesting study that came out of the University of Chicago. It was written about in the book Freakonomics, that there was this odd drop in the murder rate in America. For some reason, the murder rate dropped by about 50%. And they tried to understand why. Did they bring on new police or were there a new set of laws? And they traced it back about 18 years to Roe versus Wade. Why? Because all of a sudden, a bunch of unwanted children weren't born. And those unwanted children tended to get less care, less education. They're more likely to grow up and break the law and commit murder. So, you know, I like to just stick to the data and not get too much involved in the very passionate things that you work in. But from a very black and white point of view, where my interest is these are laws and norms that we ought to, and conversations we ought to be having, because it makes America a healthier place that's living longer and better.
Exactly. And for women's health care, which is massively underfunded in this country, famously underfunded, Planned Parenthood has been the most remarkable service, particularly in underprivileged areas, for women's health care. Less than 4% of their work has ever been around unwanted pregnancies or abortion. And so this idea that these are abortion warehouses is insanity. No one's looking at the data, looking at the research, and considering how many women's lives have been saved because there was access to an OBGYN, there was access to that kind of healthcare. They were able to get access to a mammogram, discover cancer early. I mean, we're in a massive crisis and we're battling over the wrong things. And it is, you're absolutely right. It's about taking care of each other on a longevity level. I mean, the two issues we've just talked about are about mortality.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm black and white. So if you like that clip, there's a lot more where that came from. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you won't miss our new videos as they come out each week.